Hello friends, today I am pruning peach, cherry, apple, and pear trees. It's the end of March here in it's the end of March here in Cold Hardiness Zone 5A, and as you can see, the trees are still dormant, but the sap will be flowing soon. It's been, in the 20s and 30s up until this point. It's creeping into the 40s today, and in the next 2 weeks, we're getting consistent days in the upper 40s and 50s. So this is pretty much the end time when I could be doing this. I'm going to show you some before and after pictures and remind you what year's growth, what fruit grows on for what tree, and give you some examples of the kind of things you should be pruning for. This is my peach. It's a Reliance or a Contender, I forget. It is 6 years old. It's beautiful. This was planted from like a 2-foot whip. As you can see, I've been pruning it to open in the inverted cone. I've got 3 leading structures, and from there, they're branching out further a couple feet up. Now we need to do a couple cuts. The trees are old enough that I can include pruning for height. I want to go only as high as my clippers can reach, so I'll be lobbing that off. That's the most painful cut I'll have to do. Another type of branch you want to take care of, you don't want branches growing down. This particular side branch is too long for the age of the tree, so I'm going to cut off about 1/3 of it so that all the weight isn't out here and it bends down to touch the ground. Branches shouldn't be growing across into other branches. You can see this is a main section, but this branch is growing into it. When this leaves, all the leaves and the fruit will interfere with each other, so it's best to cut this one off entirely. Peaches will bear fruit on 2-year-old branches, or as we call it, the redwood. Gonna snip off any branches that are broken or growing too close to each other, and just generally thin it out. Here's some speed clipping. This one is damaged. This one's growing down. This one is too tall. This one is damaged. This one is not going to do anything. And maybe clip off the height here. On to the next one. Keep the tree open. Open. And let's see, we got a broken branch. Yeah. Too tall. Broken. And too tall. And I suppose I could thin this out a little bit more. This one's crossing. You want to cut off crossing branches, etc. And then you got things like this. It's not a water sprout, but it kind of gives a water sprout vibe. That's too long. Shouldn't be there. Here off the central leader, this is a different peach tree, right? I wish 3 would have split here, but instead 1 split here, and the other 2 are splitting here. We want to make sure we nix any of them that are growing straight up in the middle. Too close. I can see they're touching. These are touching each other here, so we have to make the decision. And I'm choosing to save the stronger branch. We're going to get rid of the competition. Otherwise, this is opening up nicely over here, right? You see, after it divides, another couple feet up, we get to another branching path. So these 1, 2, 3 should spread out like an inverted cone from this section. And then hopefully these 3 will do the same if I can train it. This is a cherry. It's the weirdest shaped cherry tree I've ever seen. It's probably why I got it on a discount. Cherries grow on 2, 3, and 4-year-old wood. So we're going to effectively prune this the same way as we just did the peaches. We're going to make sure the center is clean and cut things that are crossing and dead. We don't have to worry about a height issue. This is already pretty small, but like, take a look, see? That's like coming across. We got to open up this whole center here. Oh boy, a little bit of work. But I shouldn't have stopped the video, because if you're watching this, you want to see me work. So here we go. Let's start on the bottom. This one gets axed because it's crossing. This one's going into the middle. Nope. Going into the middle, two of them are competing. I don't like how any of these are pointing this way. So we're gonna make a drastic cut. Drastic fantastic. Boom. Let's move over here. This one's growing down. This branch is growing up into the middle. 9. Let's see, any dead? These are fine, these are fine. It's maybe a little bit too long. Look at that, straggly and dead. There's dead, Jim. Here we can really see things that are crisscrossing. Look at this big old one. Crisscrossing and bending up, growing into the middle, growing up from the middle. We don't want that. Same with this. Keep the center clear. This one I'm going to let slide just to see what happens. Although my heart tells me I should cut it. Okay, let's trim it. Yeah, these are just wonky. Look at this one. And we'll leave that be. This one we can probably trim a little to length. We got some things growing into each other. I'm going to leave both of these go. You see how this is growing into those two? No, thank you. In fact, I should probably trim out its counterpart here. And then we're just going to cut off some of the stragglier ends to encourage growth. Ditto here. These ones are going to touch their neighbor. Well, let's be a little more gentle. There. Now we've pruned the cherry. This cherry over here is certainly shaped differently. Different species. It was pruned differently from the nursery too. This one is 6.5, nearly 7 feet tall. Whereas the one we just came from was only 4.5, 5 feet tall. This one's definitely got a center leader. I'm gonna thin it out hardcore. So while we're pruning, let's talk about why we prune. Well, we want to increase the airflow, right? So long as there's good airflow, that helps with disease prevention. We want to actually reduce the amount of fruit so that the ones that are growing get ample energy and can grow nice and full. When you cut it back, it promotes hardiness. Oh, that one killed me. Yeah. Shaping it, of course. We want to be able to control the shape, so it's not just a wild child. This is not an Enya song from the 90s. There's an obscure reference for anyone still watching. I love pruning and I hate pruning. I think there are certainly reasons why it's in the Bible as a reference, talking about children. It's a painful thing to do. You spend so much time caring for these trees, loving these trees, and then you have to snip them down. Oh, it hurts. It hurts, man. But you gotta do it. You do it for the trees. You do it for yourself. So up here I'm doing height pruning. In fact, we're gonna snip it right there. Oh boy. Ooh, lots of crisscrossing going on here. I got some decisions to make. On to the pears. Both my apples and pears were girdled 3 years ago, and I wrapped them. I did a bypass, and to mixed results. This one I really let go as a true experiment. And take a look. This is all new growth in the last 2 years from here up. Now, if I were to just leave this, which part of me, I think I'm just going to say I have an example of it in my yard, this would grow up and it would all be clustered in the middle as it falls down. Whereas the pear over there, which you can't even see with my focus, this is a single leader, which is what we want. We want a single leader for pears and for apples, right? There's the main leader. Here we're just going to open up the middle and promote branching because we want this, I'm backing up into my peach, lol. We want this to be round and short in another 5 years time, which it will be. Whereas this one, it's going to look totally different. But speaking of this weird beard, this is a good one. If you got any any suckers coming up from the ground, you know, obviously you don't want those surviving. And depending on where your graft was, right, you can see here's part of my bypass tape, and this had grown from underneath the bypass. So I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, what stock this is, because look at the bark even looks different. And I'm sorry, I know the camera doesn't make a good job of it just with this lighting, but trust me, the bark looks different. This might be a two species this might be a two species pear tree. Even the redwood is different. Look, can you see this is light brown, whereas here's the light brown. This was all new growth last year. Unbelievable. And lastly, we get to my apples. You can see needs pruning, beautiful shape, but needs thinning, and then needs a lot of work. This is my Snappy Mac. It's a variety of Macintoshes, you can tell. This is going to get a height pruning, and this was also one of my girdled species. So let's take a look. Let's remove some of the old wrap. It really is a great success story. We're going to cut this off. It's growing below the graft. Here's the original trunk. You can see here's where it was girdled, and then here's where the true bark comes back. I did a quadruple bypass, and this side here totally took. So this is all graft wood that then works itself into the system and has fed the entire tree. It's really amazing. So if you've got a situation like that, either graft wood or whatever, these ones are all going to need to come off. Look, they're coming straight up. They're underneath the graft. This might technically be from the species that I grafted from, which I think is the same tree, so it's probably fine. But look, see? It's branching up and going right into the middle of the tree. 1, 2, 3. Those all need to go. They're only causing problems to being careful not to hurt the actual graft itself. See, that's already a lot better. Yeah. Oh, high as I can reach. Maybe a little lower. Hey, how do you like my fence? Built that last year. It's a beauty, ain't it? You see I've got spacers in my trees. This one's been here for about 2 years. I haven't touched it, just training these limbs to grow apart. If everything's worked well, I should be able to pull that apart and these won't snap back together. Oh, well, the plastic itself broke because, I mean, it's plastic. But you can see, yeah, they're not going to go back together. The tree has trained itself. That's exactly what these spacers should do. Should be the same with this. Let's take a look. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not trying to break plastic, but we'll dispose of that appropriately. Spacers, a good investment if you got them. My mother's father died a couple years back, and he always had fruit trees in his house growing up. So he was my inspiration for planting fruit trees on my property, and he was so proud, so happy before he died that I was growing trees. He never got to come out here and see them for himself, but I'd show him pictures, and he was thrilled. This tree in particular, I really want to make sure survives. Something about a Mac and my grandpa Shoker. It's just special. In fact, every year since I've had this tree, I've taken a picture next to it just to, you know, for the prosperity of watching it grow. Something about when's the best time to plant a tree, 20 years ago, when's the second best time, now, one of those things. I don't know. Feels like a continuity of my family. Feels like whenever I'm with this tree, oh, this is dead from here down. Whenever I'm interacting with this tree, I'm interacting with Grandpa. I'm sure anybody out here watching who's got fruit trees might know the feeling. I went back with 2 of those spacers that I pulled off of one of the apple trees, and I put them on the pear here. And you can see it's an open V shape with 3 runners. I've never seen a pear grown in an inverted cone like this. It's definitely wrong. This is an experiment, folks. But I'm sure I'll come back with another video in 5 years and tell you what happened. You seen it here, folks. You seen it here. And so, there we are. I feel like a butcher. Didn't take me too long to do. Barely over an hour while filming. It's all pretty straightforward when you know what you're looking for. But I've just been second guessing myself the whole time. You know, I hate doing this. I know the trees are resilient. I know they'll be fine. In fact, I know they'll be better than fine. I've seen plenty of friends who have orchards do the same thing. Or fruit trees along the highway, they get pruned. They look terrible for a moment, and then all the growth comes in and everything is good. You know, there's sound principles. You need that airflow. You need to prune it back so the fruit that grows nice and healthy and big, to prevent disease, to prevent tiny, insignificant fruit, right? And they'll grow up. It's been 5 years, 6 years. This was just sticks on the ground, barely 2 feet tall. Now I prune them all back to the top of my arm length, so at most they're about 7 feet or so tall, 7.5 feet. In another 5 years, I'll have canopies touching. All it takes is time. It's a good thing in the end. If you've got some pruning ahead of you, good luck. Let me know if you think I did the right thing, or if I forgot anything, or if I really made a mistake. I don't know. Doesn't matter how many times I do it, it always seems new. Thanks for watching. Happy pruning. Happy gardening. Bye.